Welcome to the Ultimate Wellness Group. Today's discussion will center around homosexuality and the LGBTQ community. Let me start by saying I have no intentions nor a desire to be offensive or to disrespect anybody. This is a video that I hope will start a conversation, spark a discussion that's needed to be had. Why would I make a statement like that? Well, as a scientist, anytime we have a process that is occurring or something that begins to happen outside of the reality that we have in history, then we start to look at those things and we try to look at it from a scientific perspective. How did it happen? Why did it happen? What influenced it? When we look at animal populations on this planet Earth, in nature, not ones that are captivated by humans and influenced by humans, but in nature, there is no such thing as a homosexual or a transgender animal. So we have to not get upset with each other, but look at, well, why is this happening in humans? What is the possibility? What are the influences that could potentially cause this to happen? Because we must start this conversation with the idea that sex, or male and the female, is a social construct. And that I would not agree with at all. The male organ, the penis, the testicles, the urethra, the prostate gland, the seminal vesicles, all of these comprise the reproductive organs in a man. In a woman, you have the vagina, you have the cervix, you have the uterus, you have the fallopian tube, you have the ovaries. I'm just mentioning the major ones. These are the reproductive organs in a woman. Those organs have a very specific purpose. Those organs are for procreation. They're very scientific. They do exactly what they are influenced to do by our hormones and influenced by our genetics to do. So let's address, firstly, the notion that homosexuality is genetic. So every human that walks the earth came from the reality of an egg and sperm. 23 chromosomes, 23 chromosomes, right? 23 come from the man, 23 come from the woman. The differentiation of sex comes from the man. He carries an X or a Y chromosome, and that is what differentiates either male or female. So that's not a genetic, that's not a social construct. That is a genetic construct and a natural nature construct. That's how procreation happens. So you can't put that on socialism. Secondly, I'd like to say that every human is a heterosexual reality because of the fact that even if you go into a test tube, or you go into a surrogate mother, or you go into any reality where a baby is produced, there had to be 23 chromosomes from a woman and 23 chromosomes from a man. So if there were genetically produced homosexuals, if a woman is attracted to a woman, they can't reproduce. And if a man is attracted to a man, he can't reproduce. So if that's a genetic reality, you couldn't pass those genes on to another generation. When we look in this society and we say that homosexual couples are adopting children, well, that is a possibility as a family. You have a man and they have children, but those children didn't come from them from a sexual reality, is the point that I'm getting to. And next, let's discuss where, when, and how sexual differentiation occurs. There are 3 trimesters in pregnancy. We consider each trimester 12 weeks. You have 3 months for each trimester. We consider 4 weeks per month. So 3 months, 4 weeks, 12 weeks per trimester. You have a first trimester, second trimester, third trimester. These are very specific time frames in a mother where very specific realities are occurring. Usually a child is totally made, all organs and everything, by the second trimester or the third trimester. It's pretty much growth and maturity and getting ready to come out and live on its own. For this discussion, in the 14th to the 15th week is where physical sexual differentiation occurs. So the first trimester is 12 weeks. We're in the early phase of the second trimester when sex is differentiated. Prior to that, that baby was undifferentiated. It wasn't a male, it wasn't a female. The X and the Y chromosome producing a sex will produce a male. The X and the X chromosome will produce a female. So at that 14th or 15th week, you either have testosterone and other androgens, the male hormones, that will differentiate that into a male, or you'll have estrogen, progesterone, and the other female hormones that will produce that child into a female. That's the physical sexual differentiation that occurs early second trimester. No mistakes, perfect system, all in procreation. So we can't talk about genetic malformations and all these other things being something that God did. No, that's errors that humans make with the food they eat, the drinks that they drink. Sometimes you smoke and you use drugs and exposed to things while you are pregnant. That causes genetic malformations, not genes. So what is the other sexual differentiation that occurs in a baby? Physical is what we just finished talking about. The other possibility is the mental sexual differentiation, which happens at a different time than the physical. The physical, as I stated, happens around the 14th or 15th week. The mental sexual differentiation occurs late in the second trimester and in the third trimester. And this is where a lot of studies have been done. So, you know, some of the things I'm saying, don't be offended. Go look it up. You have a computer that you walk around with. You can look up sexual mental differentiation in pregnancy and look at all the possible things that can influence that. And so that's what the next part of the conversation will include. And that is, what happens during the mental sexual differentiation in a mother who has had a very difficult, rough, and almost impossible reality with the man that got her pregnant? What happens to the woman who has had multiple bad relationships with men? What happens to the woman who is sexually assaulted or physically abused while she's pregnant with that baby? What does that do to the mental sexual differentiation of that child? What happens when you are watching television programs and movies and reading magazines and watching commercials that have a heavy influence of homosexual scenes or homosexual ideas? What happens when we are outside and we see chemtrails, these planes that are dropping these trails, and next thing you know, you see a cloud overhead? Is that influencing? What about the chemicals that are in some of the drinks and the food that we eat, such as Lipton iced tea, such as ramen noodles, some of the ice cream, some of the more common sodas? They have chemicals in them that we know alter the way we produce our hormones. What happens if a mother is ingesting these type of things? What happens if a mother is drinking water or taking baths in waters that have fluoride in them? What if she's in swimming pools that have chlorine? What if her water in her house that she's drinking and cooking and taking showers with has chlorine in it? These substances are known to influence how we formulate our hormones. What happens if you're putting hot food in plastic containers, hot food in styrofoam containers, wrapping your food in aluminum? You're drinking out of plastic bottles that have been in heat or in your freezer very cold. Extremes of temperatures. All of these different things that I'm mentioning have been studied and can influence the way we produce our hormones. And so if the physical sexual differentiation happens early in the second trimester, but then you have late second trimester and all of third trimester, that there can be an influence on the mind the sexual differentiation that's occurring in the mind, then maybe we can look at that from a scientific perspective, and maybe we'll draw some conclusions on why we have a sexual differentiation, that people are coming out of their mothers and in a few years they're saying, I was born homosexual, or I was born in a male body but I think I'm a female, or vice versa. I believe these things can happen. I don't believe that these people are lying or making these stories up. But my conclusion is not that God made a mistake. My conclusion is that there's nothing wrong with genetics. My conclusion is that there are serious implications that we need to study of the possible influence on a mother's mind, on a mother's emotions, on a mother's reality of everything that's going on while she's producing this baby, and how that influences that baby once they are born. Most mothers that have had children know that the type of emotional kind of format that they had while they were pregnant influences that child. A lot of times the emotions that a mother had while she was pregnant are the emotions that she sees dominant in that child once they're born. So we have to consider that these are possibilities. So I'm hoping that nobody was offended. I'm hoping that nothing I said was disrespectful. I didn't intend to, but I hope that this video begins the discussion. You can send me comments. You can go to my website and send comments. But let's start the discussion and let's see if we can come to a conclusion on what is going on and whether or not some of the influences that I'm talking about are possible. So thank you for tuning into the Ultimate Wellness Group. I hope you enjoyed it.